Let's do this.
So Gareth Pickering was such an interesting guy, and we just can't thank him enough for his time and sharing so openly with us. We had such a great chat with him.
Yeah, what a great guy. Definitely someone I think we can learn a lot from. And my takeaway was to definitely write down my perfect day, because I think that is such a powerful thing.
And you knew Pickers before that as well, eh?
Oh yeah, but we went to primary school together.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And his mom was actually my teacher for a little stint in primary school.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I still have this flippant. I think I should mention. I have this funny memory. Oh yeah, she said something to me. She was a really cool lady though. But she said something to me. She was my Afrikaans teacher, and she said she was like, "Okay, well, you can't talk anymore, Gareth," or something along those lines. Can you please stop talking? So I looked at her and I went. And I pulled the tongue at her. And I think all she could do was flip and laugh. She just thought it was funny. And for me, that was the second his mom kind of stole my heart. You know what I mean?
That's classic.
It was funny.
Yeah, Gareth and I actually became quite good friends as well. We chat fairly often.
Yeah.
Have good fairly regular Skype catch-ups and.
Oh, cool, man. That's really cool.
For a while we were having weekly catch-ups, just to chat about life, and what we were working on, what we were doing, what was happening in life, and actually with the three, it was Shanti, myself, and Gareth,
okay.
So it was Kif. So we actually got to know each other really, really well over the last while,
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, brother. Flip, it looks like you just woken up or something, man.
It's only 5 o'clock in the morning, you motherfuckers.
But is it 5? I thought it was 6, bud.
You said 6, but the meeting request came through at 5.
Flip. That's weird because... No, what's the time? I thought you were 6 hours behind me.
I don't know what you are. I'm 8 hours behind South Africa at the moment. So I don't know where you guys are.
I thought you were 6. Sorry, bud. That's why I thought you were 6 hours behind us.
It's all good.
Sorry, man.
No worries.
You got potting.
You want to go back? You want to have a kip, and we can come back an hour.
No, all good, boys. No, I can just I got stuck in a bit of a salsa club last night and battled to leave a little bit.
As one does.
Exactly.
Are we gonna see a walk of shame walk past you there in the background in a second?
No, folks. That doesn't happen.
That's funny.
And it's
on
never
a
a walk of
podcast,
shame
this is being recorded.
He says never walk of shame with you, bud.
No chance. She walks out here with her head held high.
Funny, man. Thanks, Gareth. That was really, really amazing, man. You were really super well spoken, and I think it was really awesome, bud. Thank you.
You're welcome, man. Thanks, boys. It's been cool hanging out. It's a little bit overdue, but why not do it in this format and create content at the same time?
Yeah, that's the thing,
exactly,
bud. Yeah, for sure, man. This is about you, right? I mean, and we want to talk about you and your life and stuff you've experienced and your travels, and obviously we want to go. We for our listeners, we want to give them some more advice in terms of digital nomad. And also, we wouldn't mind actually touching probably on the psychedelic stuff, just if that's something you're happy about talking about. Just because,
for sure, man.
Just because there's been like I was saying to Craig earlier on, this week has just been all of a sudden after chatting to you.
Yes.
I've just had 3 things pop into my inbox or phone, whatever, about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's
cool.
okay, so it's a thing. You know what I mean?
Sweet. Yeah.
And
1, 2, 3,
record. So, hey guys, we've come to that part of the podcast where Craig and I discuss a couple of the topics and things that we spoke about with our guest. And with Gareth, it was a really interesting chat, and a couple of things. One of the things that we spoke about actually was psychedelics, and in terms of people using them to enhance their performance and to have more clarity. And it's actually quite strange because how the world works, because this last week I've received a few emails or notifications on how mushrooms are something that is becoming quite big, and something that's actually also quite important, and that there's a lot of research going on. And one of them was an article in BBC today about a certain substance in mushrooms actually helping people with depression. And I think it's a really interesting avenue to go down. And I think at the moment in history, just in the present moment, people are both exploring the world in terms of technology and where it can take us. But then at the same time, we're kind of going back into all things that nature has offered us. So people are starting to breathe, use their breath more to help them with their health. And, people exploring different things in nature, like mushrooms, for example, that do have these health benefits. And it's a really interesting place that we are at. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Craig.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think Gareth does a really good job of, in general, through this chat, is just in general discussing how our perceived idea on certain things might actually be a little bit different, And I think he does the same thing, discussing microdosing and psychedelics and plant medicine. And I think you hit the nail on the head as well, Gareth. It's like we're going back to basics. We're exploring stuff that's been around for a long time, and just seeing what kind of value can we extract from those like things that we've done for a long time, and that may have been taboo for whatever reason. But we're like you said, we're at a point in history where we can go, well, you know what, it's okay to discuss it, and let's have an open discussion about these things, and why not? And I actually agree with that. Like, without putting it's right or wrong on it, let's have the discussion. And I think that's just healthy in any sort of subject, including things like psychedelics. So I think good on him for having a chat about it and being okay with it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the thing that you like sort of touch on there is things like this are taboo to talk about. It's because they're out there, they're kind of seen as hippie, or you've kind of lost the plot a little bit because you're doing these things. And it's not really like that at all. We actually all exist from nature, and it's worth finding out like what our connection with it is. So it is very interesting. And the other thing that obviously we spoke to Gareth about was a lot about travels, and just how amazing traveling is, and how important it actually is, I guess, for each of us to go on some sort of journey, to travel, to see the world, to see what's out there, to meet people, to make connections, because literally that is like the best education you're probably ever going to get, unless you want to be like a mathematician or a doctor or an engineer. Like, to learn about life, the best thing to do is just to go put yourself out there, explore, meet people, and just experience what the world has to offer.
Yeah, totally. I think Gareth once again did a good job of sort of making the connection between life itself, the internal journey, and then the external journey, and putting yourself in maybe sort of scenarios and situations that seem a little tough and are out of your comfort zone in a physical way, then also makes you sort of address things in your life in a different way as well. And so, and in doing so, you're actually learning, but then you end up teaching, because you coming in contact with a lot of people along your journey, and they're interacting with you, you're interacting with them, and you've got this sort of exchange that happens, and I think that's just such a massive thing to learn, is just to get to know other people and through them to get to know yourself better. And I think he's really done a lot of that, and that's why he's such an interesting guy to chat to, I reckon. So why don't we go ahead and have a good listen and see what makes Gareth Pickering ridiculously human.
Awesome. Gareth Pickering, my man. How's it going, buddy? How you doing?
All good, man. Nice to see you guys.
Yeah, you too, man.
How's it going, my boy?
Hello, Craig. What's happening, boys?
But thanks so much for joining us on our podcast. I know we've woken you up at a sort of ungodly hour, 5 a.m. In Guatemala. So really appreciate you making such a big effort, bud. And
No worries. It's
yeah,
good to be here, boys.
are you? How are you feeling? Are you tired? Did you have a good night?
All good, man. We were talking a little bit before you got on air that I found myself stuck in a salsa club that I battled to leave a little bit. So I've had about 3 hours of sleep, but all good.
Awesome. And how's your salsa doing?
So how's that going?
My salsa is about as good as my Spanish at the moment. It's it's humbling, exciting, ugly, all within the space of a few minutes. But no, it's good fun. Yeah.
Have you got those hips going yet, bud?
I got Ricky Martin hips.
Classic.
Oh, that's beautiful. Scarred for life now, I'm afraid.
Gareth, cool, man. So like we said, thanks so much for joining us. Just to give a little bit of context to the guys that are listening, we actually go like way back. We went to primary school together and high school together, and then obviously kind of like went on our own paths, and then joined up again a few years ago, when we went on holiday in Croatia. And that's also where you and Craig met and
Exactly.
kicked off your guys' relationship. Also, just like, I don't know, I always remember you, but like in primary school, you were like the top soccer player, like in the school. And
That was a long time ago.
do you remember those days?
Yeah, I used to enjoy soccer at school.
Yeah, and you're like you had like this funny style, I remember, like, but like skillful. And were you were in Scorpion, weren't you, in their house?
I was.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny stuff, man. It's amazing.
So when you say a funny style, let's just quickly hear about a little bit more about this.
I'd like to hear about that as well.
No,
yeah.
I don't know. Just I think it's your body. You know what I mean? Like you have like more rounder legs, and you always used to use like the outside of your foot when you were dribbling and stuff like that. And no, I just remember you were like the star soccer player. Do you remember that?
I remember playing soccer. I thought my form was amazing there.
Yeah, no, of course.
A matter of perspective, obviously.
Yeah. Classic, man. So
Yeah,
but
yeah,
how's
what's
the coffee
what
this
the
morning
topics?
in Guatemala?
All good, man. Yeah, it's strong, good. Guatemala's got some pretty good coffee, so yeah, kicking me awake this morning. It's awesome.
No, that's awesome. But then you've been on the road for quite a while now, have you?
Um, on the road is basically, I don't even say that I travel full time anymore because this is pretty much how I live. But for the last almost 4 years, I've been living on the road, and home for me at the moment is a place called Antigua in Guatemala, and I've been here close to 2 months now, and I'm looking like I'll probably be here for another 2 months. And I came here with the view of learning Spanish, and yeah, so that's where I find myself at the moment. But it's been 4 years since I left South Africa.
Wow, that's quite an impressive amount of time to be on the road as a non-full-time traveler, you know. So tell us a little bit about where your roots are and where you grew up, and just a little bit about your background when you were a youngster and that kind of thing.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, I was born in South Africa, in a place called Durban. I lived there with my family until I went to Johannesburg, and I went to a place called Bryanston Primary. That was where Gareth was talking about earlier. And yeah, we became friends there. Although you were a year behind me, G.
Yeah, I think a couple of years
So we
actually.
went close mates. We went close mates at primary school. But yeah, Bryanston Primary was where I did my primary schooling, most of it in Johannesburg. And yeah, my folks lived in a place called Lone Hill, and our family home is still there. And my folks still live in the same house. And myself and my younger brother were there for a bit. We both went on from Brighton Primary School to Fourways High, where Gareth was going a couple of years behind me. Finished my schooling there. Following that, I did 2 summers in America. That's pretty much, I think, where my travel bug bit me. I left high school and went to be a water ski instructor in America, and loved the idea of being a water ski instructor, and the traveling part of it was incredible. And that
And
was
sorry to interrupt you there, Gareth. Was that in like camp counseling? Is that what you did?
yeah, like a Camp America type vibe. It's like an exchange program that allows young people to travel. So there's a whole lot of people from Australia, New Zealand, the UK, South Africa that go to these summer camps to work, and you don't get paid a huge amount of cash, but you don't have too many costs while you're there, and you get an opportunity to do something that you have a skill in. And I spent my life growing up water skiing with a family. So yeah, there was an opportunity for me to go to America and to work there. So yeah, that was 2 summers, and in between that, I also went to the UK and spent some time in the UK working in hospitality in London in the West End, and then the following summer back to America to do summer camp again, more water skiing, a little bit more travel, and then back to the UK for a more extended period this time. That was in around 99, and I spent about 2 years there working full time in a restaurant in Covent Garden in the West End. And yeah, it was an amazing experience. I really enjoyed the opportunity to serve people, and it's something that I really enjoyed subsequently. Like even on my travels now, I sometimes just find like a restaurant or coffee shop that I enjoy. And in the last 4 years, I've worked in 3 or 4 places, not even for money, but just the opportunity to go and work and serve people and be in hospitality again, which was cool. Um, my time
And
in London was also, it was interesting.
and
Go
which
ahead, bud.
sorry, buddy, which restaurants were you working? Because you said it was like quite a high end one, was it?
Yeah, so it's apparently it's closed now. It used to be owned by Elton John. He had sold it to the owner that employed me, and it's called PJ's. It's on Drury Lane in the West End, quite close to the Lion King Theatre in Covent Garden. So yeah, it was a smart place. We had quite a lot of producers and actors and theatre people, lots of yeah, high rollers in terms of entertainment industry in the UK coming into the restaurants for lunch meetings, and then all the actors coming in after the show. So I met some pretty amazing people. And the guy that employed me, a guy called Bill, gave me a really good opportunity. I mean, I hadn't even turned 21 yet, and I moved from a waiter to a restaurant manager, and I was in charge of the entire shop, including the kitchen downstairs. You know, they had a chef down there, but he would report to me. And yeah, I was the youngest person on the team. So that was, yeah, I think I grew quite a bit personally in that time, just understanding customer service, understanding dealing with shit, understanding, yeah, staff issues, service level, that type of stuff. So yeah, that was my time in London. I At about the same time I decided I didn't want to spend my entire life in service and just working in a restaurant, although it was good. I felt like I needed to do a little bit more. I had also become good friends with a stockbroker in London who was making massive amounts of cash. Like, I remember at the time he told me that he had a £3 million bonus on top of his salary the one year, and I was like, "Whoa, this is
Whoa.
where I need to be." Yeah,
Where did you meet this guy?
he was my next door neighbor in Wimbledon, and we hung out together. And he's a really generous guy, and he for my birthday he bought all of us tickets to go and see U2 in London, and we went there in a limo. Like, yeah, he was flash, eh?
Wow.
And yeah, I liked the idea, and I liked the idea of what that amount of cash could do. And yeah, so that was my plan. I was going to go and be a stockbroker. So yeah, I ended up coming back to South Africa to do my finance degree. I studied at a university called Bond University. You might know, Craig. It's an Australian university.
Yeah.
They had a campus in Sandton in South Africa. And yeah, did my finance degree. I was like one of the oldest students now, because I'd been traveling for about 4 or 5 years prior to that. Finance degree done. Decided I was going to go and be a stockbroker. Left there, white male in South Africa with no banking experience. I battled for about 6 months to find work, specifically in stockbroking. And that was, I would say, quite a testing time for me, because I spent a lot of time covering letters to financial institutions, even saying things like, I want to come work for you guys for free. I just want to sit on your trading desk and get experience, because I realized I had no experience. So yeah, that didn't materialize. And yeah, I got lots of rejection letters and a very thick skin. And then somebody came along at Liberty, which is a financial services company and long-term insurance company in South Africa. And the job title was financial advisor. I'm like, well, that's a start. Let's get in there. So went in there. Turns out financial advisor means flogging long-term insurance policies to friends and family.
Yeah.
Which was,
the dodgy
yeah,
guy you want to avoid.
yeah. When I realized that I didn't want to be doing this anymore, when you go to like a social event, like a dinner party, and you sit down next to somebody, they're like, oh, what do you do? No, I work for Liberty as a financial advisor. And everyone's like, sort of disappearing because they think you're going to corner them and flog them policies. It's a tough sales environment. You can do pretty well out of it, but you don't get a client base. The channel that I was recruited into was basically developing new business. So it's this idea that you just find your existing network of people, you go and start selling to them. And I go and have a meeting with Craig. I try and flog him an investment policy, which is like a retirement annuity, maybe some life cover, make him understand that if anything happens, he's going to be disabled and he's not going to earn any money. Like, you put the fear of God into people. So like, the sales training I got was incredible. I wasn't 100% excited about the way that we sold in the product. So it lasted probably about 8 months before I left there and started my own business. But I learned a huge amount about selling in that space.
And
So
you speak really well, and you're a good communicator. Did the restaurant business and then this kind of industry sort of help you improve your skills in terms of communication and like people skills?
I think so. It's not something that I've been consciously aware of, but I get a sense that the restaurant was very much a place for me to cut my teeth on interfacing with people. There were days in the restaurant where I felt like I felt out of my depth most of the time that I was there, and I think it's something that I've subsequently realized, and maybe this answers your question, but not directly. This idea that you grow so much when you're uncomfortable. Like that little circle where your comfort zone is, and like the arrow points out here, and it's like, this is where the magic happens. Like, you got to really push yourself outside that comfort zone to grow as a person. Like when at the moment I'm learning Spanish, I'm finding it so fucking difficult. It's really tough. Like, it's the most difficult journey. You wake up someday and you think, sweet, I got this. You go to the class and you're like, you can't get the words out that like all of these things. So I think all the times that I've been uncomfortable, I believe it's time that I've grown. Liberty, that sales training that I did at Liberty was desperately uncomfortable, and your earnings are now linked to this difficult thing that you have to do. I mean, they have this really difficult Friday morning calling plan. You've got to get 12 new appointments every single week in this environment, in the sales environment, in order to grow. This is their model. Like, it's just a numbers game. If you see 12 people, even if you're a shit salesperson, you will be able to close 2 people just by the function of the fact that you've seen 12. So, by the end of the week, if you haven't got 12, Friday morning's calling time. I'd sit down on a Friday morning and have like 1 or 2 calls, and I'd be like, oh, I've got like a long road ahead of me. And I've got a list of people. Like, if I've been to see Craig that week, I've tried to prospect friends and family of yours that I can now phone and sell. So you've now given me Gareth's phone number, and I'm like, hey, Gareth, you don't know me. I'm a friend of Craig's. I went to see him this week, but I'd really like to come and talk to you and do a financial needs analysis. It's like, oh, it's so horrible.
So awkward, but especially when you don't enjoy it, you know what I mean? It's like,
And also, so the thing that I taught about the thing that I got taught in that space as well is this idea of selling something that you don't believe in. I left after about 8 months, and it wasn't for lack of trying. I did pretty well. Like, I was good at it. Like, the first month I was the top salesperson in our team, and I bought a BMW in my second month, and then the third month, all of the policies that I sold to one guy in month 1 lapsed. They've got this model where they take back your commission. So I started on minus 17,000 Rand. Yeah, this is back in 2003. It was tough, man. It was really tough. No basic salary. You had to supply your own laptop, get out there, do it. So anyway, that's what happened. And I think subsequently, again, sometimes we learn lessons really slowly. You get stuck into a space of selling things that you don't believe in. And you can do it if you force it hard enough. But anything in your life that you feel you continually need to force is probably something that you might need to reconsider. I'm not saying don't push yourself outside your comfort zone. I'm saying, like, if you continually find yourself waking up in the morning going like, "Ugh, like, I don't like this, I don't believe in it, it's not really what I want to do," like, you need to consider that for a while. And I think it's something that, yeah, it took me, well, the continuation of my story is that I started my own business, which was amazing for 10 years. I think around year 7, I started to have that feeling, and it happens initially at an unconscious level. You're not 100% sure why you like feeling a little edgy about this, and then you keep pushing it on, and you have an internal dialogue that says to you, like, don't be ungrateful. You've got an amazing business. It's doing all the things you want to be doing, and I call that my little voice. I think everybody's got a big voice and a little voice, and I think the big voice in everybody's world is that conversation that you have that drowns out everything else. And your big voice is pretty much what you think you should be doing. And the word should is always something that I think, if anybody says, oh, I should be doing this, it's again something that I feel that you're forcing in your life. So I should be grateful that my business is doing well, and I should be thankful that I've grown it to this stage. But yeah, for 3 years I had this conversation where I probably wasn't that happy with the business that I'd subsequently started. And it took me a while to recognize and to listen to that little voice, which was me just saying, like, maybe you should be doing something else here. So it's about developing that little voice. Some people call it intuition, some people call it your gut, but to make space to listen to that is really something. I think one of the skills that I think I've picked up as a result of doing shit I didn't want to do for a while.
So had you that little voice, had you listened to that during the financial planning days? Is that why you got out of it and started your own business? Or was it other circumstances that made you sort of make that shift?
To be honest, I wasn't conscious of it. I just had enough, and I wasn't enjoying it. Hindsight now, I look back and I'm aware of what it was at the time. And again, it was with my own business. The development of that understanding and that conscious awareness of that little voice is something I've only really developed in the last few years. But that little voice is your gut, and I think it's something that pushed me at that stage. I got out of it because I wasn't enjoying it, and I wasn't enjoying the product, and I didn't like being a financial advisor and moving into a social environment where I sat down and people were like, "Ugh, I don't want to do this." So that was eventually what led me to start my own business and leave there. But subsequently I understand it to be what I call my little voice or my intuition.
And Gareth, as you were sort of going through all these phases, was there anyone that you kind of looked to for advice, that like your folks or any other mentors?
Yeah, there were a few people. My dad's always been a big inspiration to me. He's always been an entrepreneur. After leaving the corporate world, he started his own business, and I spent a bit of time working with him in his company. And he gave me books along the way, which I read. One of them was The Holy Grail, the 4-Hour Work Week. I'm sure everyone's read that. And that was quite an important part of my journey in terms of getting out on the road and understanding living a life that doesn't look as conventional as life should look. This idea that you should have a job that you arrive at 8 o'clock in the morning and you sit behind a desk until 5. And so I read this book, and he gave it to me, and he gave me a lot of other books. So my dad's definitely one. While I ran my own business, I also had a business coach, a guy called John, who was really high up in a corporate gig at Nando's, and he helped me set up the franchising side of my business, and he was a strategic mentor for me in my business at the time. And at the moment I've got another life coach who is also a partner in another business. Her name's Alex, and we work together a little bit. So I've always try and surround myself with people that keep me accountable for the stuff I want to get done.
And
so how did you sorry interrupting there, how did you end up finding that person? Talk us through the process of, had you consciously gone to look for a business advisor, or was it something that you'd kind of fallen into, or just for people out there, like, what is the sort of process to find that mentor that ended up taking your business to the next level?
So it was this idea that I was like running the business. I had a partner at the time, and things were getting tricky with us. I was battling to get to a stage where I could, like you say, take it to the next level. And the journey of an entrepreneur can be a lonely place, because there's no one to turn to. Everyone thinks that the person at the top's got the answers, and a lot of the time when you're running your own business, you're winging it. Like, you don't know what the hell's going on. Like, you're going through all these different phases. Like, having a business is like having a child. Like, at one day you're like holding this thing, and the next thing you've got this horrible teenager and you don't know what to do with the thing. And it's like you've got to try and make it work, and you're like, shit, I don't know what to do here. Like, so yeah. And then your strategy of what you think you need to do. And I mean, this is like really the first proper business that I'd run. I'd always like experimented with the idea of making money and trying a few small things. But this was really the one thing that it started to grow, and it was like an advertising type agency. So I was feeling a little bit out of my depth. I knew I needed someone to take me to the next level. I had this idea of franchising my business, which I had started working on. And at the time, I went to the market to try and find somebody, and I was just talking to people that I knew. And there was a guy who had started a whole lot of casinos up in I think it was in Zambia, and he had taken gambling up there. He'd got the slot machines into the Southern Sun Group, and he was really successful. And I was like, cool, that'll be my guy. So I went and spoke to him. I said, can I have coffee? I sat down. I said, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm battling with. This is what I'm looking for. Can we chat? And he said, we can, but I think this guy, John Donachie, would be the guy for you, because he's worked at Coca-Cola. He understands business and advertising really well. He's got a franchise background. I think he'd be the right person. So it was really quite an informal relationship. I phoned this guy up. I said, hey, I'm Gareth. I got your details from Mark. Can we get together and have breakfast, because I want to chat and I just want to tell you where I'm at. Anyway, so the initial breakfast was just an explanation of what I needed. And we just had a recurring meeting every second week where I would pay for breakfast, and he would just give me like a couple of hours of his time to run these ideas off him. And yeah, it was significant in my life, because you have somebody that knows a lot of stuff and is not emotionally connected to your business, because like sometimes your business has got all these like your child, you're emotionally connected to the idea or to a specific strategy or to a partner or to your staff members, and someone can give you an objective opinion to be like, this needs to go. And I'm like, yeah, and you end up like having this conversation where you defend your decisions that you've made to employ the wrong person or to start down a specific path. And yeah, you've got an objective person that says, maybe you want to look at this. And then again, just keeping you accountable. There's this idea in my life in terms of productivity between urgent and important. And I think for a business owner, the difference between the two is significant, because urgent is the thing that makes a noise, like a customer that screams or a service level problem that's coming out every single day. But urgent is like taking half a day out to go and develop the 6-month plan for your business that's going to grow it, or to think about your 5-year plan. The problem is if the urgent makes a big noise a lot of the time, and you really need to take the time to work on the important rather than the urgent. And John kept me accountable on the important stuff. Like where are you going with this? Because as soon as you leave that meeting, you've got 5 missed calls on your phone, which has been drama. Everyone's got a different story around their business. Mine is just like, I need to spend some time working on it. And I knew that in 2 weeks' time, I had to come back with some of those important tasks done. And I'm now accountable to somebody. But when I'm really busy with the urgent stuff, I managed to put those things off. So yeah, I think it's something that I've always strived to have somebody to be accountable to. And we might get to this later in the conversation. It's something that I've now built my new business around, is a space to keep entrepreneurs accountable for the things that they need to do, the important things rather than the urgent things.
Nice.
And Gareth, sorry, yeah, you touched on like your dad early on and family and stuff, being like, he was a big influence in your life. What did you actually do for your dad when you went to work for him?
My dad had an IT business, and they were doing it's called desktop support, which is sort of like a service level agreement with clients, and they would approach retail companies that had numerous outlets. So their biggest client was part of the Ellerines group. And they would pay a flat fee for all of their IT to be looked after. And their IT included the stuff that was kept a retail store up and going. So it was basically a server in the back, connected to the internet, connected to the central head office, and then point of sale machines like a cash drawer and stuff like that. And they had 300 or 400 branches. And I initially helped him. This was when I first got out of school. Helped my dad as a on the call center there. So I was managing service level agreements. If the client was logging a call, I would then send a technician to go out and solve the problem and stuff like that. So I helped him in that space initially. And then subsequently, I helped him in sales as well. So I actually went out and sold IT service level contracts to other businesses. And I spent about 2 years working with my dad there at the same time as starting Birthday Suite, which was the creative agency.
And what was the impact on your guys' relationship? Like, well, you know, sometimes people say don't mix family with business, but other times it works perfectly. How did you guys find it?
It was gold. It was really, really good. You know, my dad and I've always had a really close relationship, and I think it grew in that space. You know, I learned a lot from him. I had finished my finance degree. I think I had quite a lot of energy at the time, and I think it was pretty synergistic in terms of how we worked together. And yeah, I think it was good. When I then franchised my business, the advertising agency. My dad then got involved there as a sort of a strategic partner as well, and he bought a share in that company. So my dad and I have always done stuff together. But yeah, I don't know if you should mix family and business, but this was a logical, natural step for us to do. And yeah, I mean, if there's one person I'd go into business with again, it would be my dad. You know.
And did you guys sit there together and actually, besides work on business together, did he actually sort of mentor you as well and give you would you sit there and say, hey, Dad, like, what should I do in this situation? What should I do for this scenario? And he'd give you his 2 cents?
For sure. Yeah, we had meetings all the time about stuff. I was in charge of sales, and we headed up the sales department, and we subsequently went on to sell that business into a much larger organization. And that process was interesting. It was a new idea for my dad as well. He'd never sold a business before. This is the business that he had started. He'd bought a partner out, but he had never sold it to somebody else. So that was an interesting journey that we went on together. But yeah, along the way there was some formal and strategic type mentoring, but a lot of it was like, listen, how are we looking on this? What should I do here? How should I charge this client? You know, the businesses, despite the size of our clients, we were relatively small and quite lean in terms of the model. So the way that it worked is we would outsource service delivery. So we had, and it was quite like, it was a new way of delivering service that had not been done before in IT. But instead of having 200 technicians on your payroll, you've got a database of 500 technicians, and you use them as and when you need them, sort of on a flexible and scalable model. So as you needed, if you had 100 calls this morning, you would have 100 guys working. If you only had 30 the following day, you'd only have 30 guys working. And that was my responsibility, to manage that service level and decide who's the best person that's located closest to this to solve this problem. So yeah, it was an amazing opportunity to work with my old man. And yeah, I learned a lot from the old bagger.
Sounds like you guys are a few years ahead of the game there. Like, that almost sounds like an Uber kind of technology.
Yeah. It was really like, yeah, people hadn't got their head around exactly how it worked at the time, and that was part of the difficulty in the sales process. Is, you know, like, a lot of times, like, people are like, cool, so how big's your organization? And we'd be like, there's 5 of us, and they're like, no, you're not going to work. But they were like, no, there's 5 plus, you know, the size of our database. You know, we service other customers in the space. So there was a lot of understanding, or getting the client rather to understand exactly how we delivered service and making them believe that we could as part of the sales process. So yeah, that was one of the challenges we faced as in terms of growing the business from a sales perspective.
Awesome.
And if you could just talk briefly about, like, I'm really interested in, like, why you ended up actually saying, or how that the evolution of starting a business came about. What sort of was the dissatisfaction where you were? Was that the motivator? And then talk us through how you actually decided to come to that business at the time. So
I think my first entrepreneurial project was probably also one of my worst ideas. I had a friend who was looking for work. She had just, I think she was in high school, and I think she had just started to drive, like around 16 or 17 or whatever. And another lady in the neighborhood had been looking for an au pair. And I saw an opportunity to be like a placement agency for my friend. So basically what I did was I negotiated a price, finding out exactly how much this lady was prepared to pay to be an au pair. So she had a budget, I can't remember what it was. And then like a little bit less than that, I went to go and place my friend. So I basically like had this idea that I could,
Awesome.
don't worry, I'll find you an au pair. And then like, okay, cool. Let's say the budget was 2,000 Rand a month. Then I'd go to my friend and be like, listen, are you looking for a gig as an au pair? It pays 1,500 per month. Like, I worked out like I could make some money on this. And I made a little agreement. My dad helped me put this agreement together, and I went back to the lady and said, listen, I've got this thing. Anyway, I hadn't like done a risk analysis and again decided exactly how I wanted my life to look, and I shouldn't really be selling my friends for profit. But the business never materialized, and my mate ended up getting the work directly with this lady, and I think the client ended up being like, who the fuck is this Muppet? Like, the price was $2,000. Thanks for introducing me. She got the gig, and I didn't get a customer, but I think the idea at the time was like, shit, there's an opportunity to do something. Like there was this idea that, you know, like that may have worked, and that may have been a thing that like if I placed 10 people, like this could have been an opportunity. And I think, yeah, maybe around that time I decided that I'd always wanted to do something on my own. My dad had been in business on his own, and I'd always just, you know, the conversation had been like, you know, try and see a problem that exists in the world and see if you can fix that problem. And I'd always looked at those things. So, yeah, that led me on a journey that led to various startups, some of them good, some of them complete disasters. But I think that was the space that led me to starting my own business. And then, along the way, the stuff my dad gave me to read, the Tim Ferriss book initially was a game changer for me. I read that a few times, with the idea that you could set up a business that allowed you to work remotely. This is quite a bit further down the track, obviously. But yeah, that idea of completely changing the model of how your life could look, of how a business can look in terms of how staff can look, was interesting for me. And the first time I read that book, my dad gave it to me, I looked at it and I was like, oh my word, this is amazing. Like page turning it. I was like, wow, this is incredible. And then I put it down and I was like, I can't. It's too big. Like I have my own business. I have 10 people working for me. I've got this franchise thing, and I put it away. But like the idea was there, and I was like, shit, that's cool. Anyway, in the next 6 or 7 years, I read that book about 4 or 5 times, and then eventually became sort of a blueprint for me to try something when I eventually went on the road about 4 years ago. So that was pretty much where it got to. But I think the initial idea started with me trying to sell my friend to a client for
Gareth, the au pair pimp. and
I don't know which is worse, long-term traveling insurance salesman or selling your friends.
Yes,
Sterling record.
But I mean, before we do jump ahead, at school, like what type of student were you? You know, were you a diligent one? Were you academic?
I was the worst type of student. I was the worst type of teenager for a parent to raise. I was horrible. I hated the idea of institution. I hated being told what to do. We used to cycle to school from our house in Lone Hill to Fourways High. Was like maybe a 7 or 8 kilometer ride. And we used to cycle to school in the morning. And I used to make it to school maybe 3 or 4 days a week. The rest of the time I'd like go to a friend's house and smoke weed. I was horrible. I hated school. I eventually got my act together around probably about standard 9 and matric, which is grade 11 and 12. And then started playing rugby at school and just focused a little bit more because I realized that I wasn't going to carry on in the way that I had. But the idea of institution and formal structure I've always really battled with, and I think it's one of the reasons I've battled to work for other people. Like just this idea of being told what to do, it's the one thing that makes me mad. School was just 5 years of trying to get through it and managing what I really wanted to do with what my folks wanted me to do and what school needed from me. So
And when you say what your folks wanted you to do, were they like pushing you to, I don't know, work in a certain field or just get through school? Make sure this oak passes.
Yeah, and when I got out of school, like this idea of just wanting to I'm done with this stuff. Like I don't want to go back to it. And my parents, with all their best intentions were like, at some point you need to make a decision. And I'm like, I don't want to go back into university. I have no clue what I want to do. So sort of like a middle road and some sort of agreement between me and my folks was I would do a 1-year project management certificate through an institution in South Africa. And the idea was that I could do it part-time in the evenings while I was working, and at least I had something to start with. So I did that before I did the summer camp vibe. So I had that, and yeah, it needed me to go through the journey that I needed to go through to meet my mate Mark, to go through that thing, because when I came back from London after that and I went to go and study finance, it was me. It was my decision. I'd made it. I was ready to do it. I knew what I wanted. I flew through that my BCom finance and investment management degree because it was my decision and I was ready to do it. But yeah, everyone's on their own journey, and I think mine just took a little bit longer for me to make that call.
And but when
what do you you know, when you speak to youngsters and a bit of a we'll talk about that later as well, but you're taking on a bit more of a mentorship role yourself. I mean, what is your recommendation on like taking gap years and stuff? Do you recommend like taking some time to find yourself, or just knuckling down as soon as possible to study something? Or what is your recommendation usually?
It's a tough one because I didn't know what I needed, but I think I also needed to find that out for myself. And I guess it really depends. It depends on the person. I think my advice to anybody, because I do have these conversations with young people all the time, and I meet people on the road and stuff. And this idea that I don't think anybody should settle, and I don't think anybody should limit themselves to how they believe their world, their life, their way to earn money, their way their relationship should look, whatever those things are. Like, don't take what the model of the world is and just go with that. Like, follow what you need to do. If that requires, or there's like a yearning to travel or do a gap year or whatever, just that understanding of that little voice. And I use the big voice, little voice analogy all the time when I explain it to people. I'm like, do you know what I'm talking about when I say little voice? Because, and I see it all the time. One of my best stories is this idea where I met this youngster in Thailand. We were in a bar, just a normal flow of conversation. What are you doing? Oh, traveling for a few weeks. And then, what are you going to do after that? Now I'm going back to the States to go and do my internship in a law firm. And the guys he just went like this. Yeah, I'm going back to the States. Like, I could just see as he told the story, like his energy changed. And then after that, he said to me, so we got back onto the story of travel and talking about travel. And he was like, yeah, man, I've been traveling with my guitar, and we spoke a little bit about music, and he just like lit up. He was like, yeah, man, I've traveled with this thing, and it's obviously a mission to travel with the guitar. Anyway, this kid had played guitar on the beach and on the sides of mountains, and every time he spoke about it, he was just alive, And I just said to him, I was like, bud, do you understand? Like, I'm picking up just how much you hating going back. I can see it. Like, you just didn't want to do it. You should really go and follow something to do with music, because I've known you for 10 minutes, but I can see like you should be doing music. He started to cry. He's like, oh my God. Like, it had been there the entire time, but his big voice had been so overwhelming in terms of what it is, like, and the story doesn't end with any other way, because that was just a conversation I had with one guy in a hostel a little while ago, and he went on, I don't know if he went back to, but this idea that he'd been sitting there convincing himself that he needed to do something else when his little voice or his intuition really wanted to be doing something different. And I guess that's really what it comes down to, this idea of just understanding, like, fuck it, it doesn't matter what you feel like doing, or what what the world tells you to do, or your parents tell you to do. Like, you're responsible for your happiness, and it doesn't have to look like anybody tells you it should look like. Go and do whatever it is that you feel like you want to look like. And I also use another example, which is something that I got out of I guess like a self-help book along the way, and this is this idea of a perfect day. And it's something that I tell people about. It's something that I use to coach with, and it's something that I use as a blueprint for my life. And that's like a really simple exercise of taking maybe an hour on your own, and you write down in as much detail as possible about what your perfect day looks like. And that perfect day doesn't have to look anything like your current day or what your parents told you it should look like. Like, if you could do anything and it would be absolutely perfect, write it down. And just write down where you wake up, what time do you wake up, who do you wake up next to, what's the first thing you do, how do you earn a living, what do you eat for lunch, what do you do in the evening, how do you exercise, and write that down. And just do that. Like, that's all you need to do as a start. Because another thing I'm big on in my life is this idea of writing stuff down. Your mind starts to, at an unconscious level, start to process it and make things happen. And the reason this example is so pertinent to me is that when I read this self-help book, it's like, write down your perfect day. I was like, throw the book down, cool, let me do this thing. I'll give myself half an hour, write it down. My perfect day that I wrote down on a piece of paper looked nothing like my current day. I was working in my advertising agency, and my perfect day says, I wake up, at a time that I want to. I wake up early. I exercise first thing in the morning. It's the more detail you write down in this exercise, the better. So I'm like, I wake up next to water. I do whatever it is that I want. I wrote down that all of my devices are connected to high-speed internet when I get back from exercise. I work on projects that I want to work on for a few hours. I then go out into the city that I live in and I explore it or do something cool, hike, mountain, whatever, like snowboard, whatever I've written down. Like I go through this detail. In the evening, I go to a local restaurant or whatever. Anyway, so I write down my perfect day. It looks nothing like my current day. I throw it away in a file somewhere, and then I carry on with my life. When I was in India, probably 2.5 years ago, it's getting close towards the end of the year, and I have this like strict routine with myself that I always plan my year at the beginning of the year, and I'm going through all my goals, and I go through my filing stuff, and I find the Word document that says the perfect day. I double click on this thing. It blew my mind. Like the day that I had been living for the time leading up to then, like living in India, I wake up when I want to. I go for a run on the beach. I'm doing yoga. Like I'm learning to surf. All my stuff's connected to high-speed internet. I'm working on a business that makes a difference. I'm like, and this is not a conscious decision. Like this has happened from an exercise I did like 5, 6 years ago. Like this thing's been filed away somewhere, and I honestly had forgotten about it. And suddenly I'm like, shit, my life looks like what I wrote down that I wanted it to look like all this time ago. And so like it's a combination of that big voice, little voice thing. But I think you also need to then put into practice exactly what you want to do. And this idea that I'm also really interested in decision making, like what makes people make decisions and how we get to these things and understanding how your mind works. But like a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know what I should do. What should I do here? You know, everyone's faced with a choice at times in their lives and they don't know what to do. If you're battling with indecision, there's two things that potentially, like, you don't know what your perfect day looks like, and you're not 100% sure of what your purpose is, because when you're 100% sure of what you need to be doing with your life, decisions fall naturally into a specific space, yes or no. So for me, like, if someone gives me an opportunity to travel, date somebody, whatever opportunity comes along in terms of my decision-making process in my life, does it get me closer or further away to my perfect day? That's like my blueprint for deciding how my life should look. So yeah, this is the thing that I tell people when I meet someone. So yeah, like if I give someone advice, I'm like, do you know what your perfect day looks like? What do you mean? Tell them the idea, tell them to go and do it. And yeah, maybe something comes of it from that. But yeah, I don't know if it works for everybody, but it's something that worked pretty well for me.
That's powerful, man. I really love that perfect day. I mean, I've never heard it spoken about like that, you know, and I'm totally gonna write mine down after this chat, that's for sure, and see what it looks like. Gareth, you spoke about indecisiveness, and I was actually speaking to my dad yesterday, and he's kind of at that retirement age, and now he's going to move on, but he's kind of worried about what the next steps are. What does his future of his life look like? And he's like, oh, I don't have any idea what I want to do. So what's your advice to not just someone, you know, like at that age, but anyone that's sort of indecisive in terms of what they must do? Besides writing down the perfect day, what else can you recommend?
The perfect day is a really good one for anybody at any age. Like, it doesn't have to be done when you get out of school. Like, you know, just write down how you want your life to look. And when you do it by casting away everything. Like, take your fear and your model of the world and put that aside when you write this down. Like, if you're at 65 and you know that you've got like another 25 left in you, and you're thinking like, how's this going to look? Write down how you want it to be. Like, if you've always wanted to do something, like, you know, and this is the thing, like life happens like this, you know, it goes by so quickly. So the perfect day is like something that you can do at any specific point. And the other one is this idea of sort of finding purpose. And a lot of people say that you don't always have to find purpose and you can get around not doing it. But like, I think purpose gives your life like a true north, this idea of what it is that you want to be remembered for, this idea of like, here lies Gareth Pickering, he did fuck all. Here's Gareth Pickering who changed lives and made a difference. Or, you know, like, what do you want to be remembered for? Because that really makes a difference. And, you know, some people, it doesn't have to be a big, massive thing. It can just be this thing that I want to go and work with animals, or I want to go and help kids, or I just want to be more involved in my church, or I want to just be there for my grandkids. Whatever that thing looks like, just have a thing. Just write that thing down. And not a lot of people have that thing. You know, like I say to people, what's your purpose? It's always like some like some waffle, like difficult thing to get out. And I say to them, like, write it down. It doesn't matter what it is, and it doesn't have to stay forever. It doesn't have to be indefinitely. You can change it in a week's time if you're like, actually, this is not my purpose anymore. But then write down your new purpose and write that thing down so that you know exactly what that is. And it allows you, again, to make decisions that align with your purpose, which for all intents and purposes is going to align with your perfect day if you get that right. It makes sense. Those two will go together irrespectively, you know, because when you decide what you want to do in your perfect day, your purpose is going to be in there somewhere.
I remember we had a chat some time ago now, and I remember you mentioning this perfect day thing, and it's funny how simple something like that seems. Like, it just seems really straightforward, but how resistant I was to doing. I'm thinking, why am I so resistant, number one? And then when I try to go through the process of it, I realized how many constraints we put on our own mentality and our own thinking, because I kept thinking, well, that's not realistic, or, all these thoughts would come up, and I'd be like, well, I can't really think that, can I? And I realized, like, it's just an exercise. I'm just writing stuff down. It's okay. And
Yes.
And it was really powerful, just realizing that those chains that you put on yourself, your own thinking, limiting beliefs,
Yeah, and it's not just you, it happens everywhere, and it's sometimes done with the best intentions. Your parents tell you with all the love in the world that you need to get a job, bro. You need to like find a solid career where you can get a gold watch when you're 65. They don't necessarily understand that it can be different, or that may not be right for you. Sometimes it comes from the best place. And this is the difficulty of this exercise, is like listening to that small voice, because everything that your parents tell you becomes the big voice, right? And this idea, like, they tell you with all the best intentions, like, don't you think you should be married now? Like, you're getting on a bit. Like, it comes from a good place. But it's up to you to make that call, to identify that small voice and be like, you know what? I don't want this world that looks like this, and that comes from the development of listening to that idea that I'm not 100% happy with how things look at the moment, and being aware of that. So yeah, I mean, that stuff, like those chains that you put on yourself, we put them on ourselves, but they come from school, they come from upbringing, they come from society, they come from the stuff you read in newspapers, the magazines. Look like this, act like this, buy this, eat this, you must have this car. Like, that continually gets fed into us, and it requires quite a big amount of skill to be, or rather self-awareness, to be like, you know what, I see it, I'm not taking it. Like, I get it, I'm not doing it, and to identify what those things are, and again, like, if you don't have a way about knowing what your perfect day looks like or what your purpose is, if you don't have a dream, you're going to be exposed to somebody else's dream and be forced to do that. This is what it comes down to. Like, if you don't know what your life should look like and what my purpose is, I'll give you a purpose. Come and do my coaching course. Buy these shoes. You must have this car. Oh, you haven't got a big house with 3 pools. Like, this is the thing that you end up becoming. If you don't have your own plan, someone else will give you their plan, and you end up doing that.
Wow.
And in terms of purpose, like, when you wrote yours down, what was it, and how has that changed over time?
So I didn't have a purpose until I wrote my purpose down for the first time, and I didn't know what my purpose needed to be. It came to me, like, if you believe in any of this fluffy stuff, like, I really think that the universe sent me this idea of finding out what it was, and it was there for quite a while before I listened to it and I was aware of it. But in my travels in the last 4 years, like, I would get messages from random people on Facebook being like, hey man, you seem to have got your life right. Please, can we chat? I need your help. And I'm like, sorry, wrong number. This is Gareth. I'm just like traveling the world, smoking weed on a beach, learning to surf. Like, I think you got the wrong person. I'm just like, I'm here thinking traveling, like, are you sure? And for a long time, I'd just sort of brush it off or whatever. And then I started to realize that, like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, like, clearly somehow I've managed to start inspiring people without planning to inspire people, and so the answer to your question is, my purpose is to lead an inspiring life that, through the development and sharing of content, allows people to be inspired and to make changes in their life. So that's really what it is. And it hasn't changed much since I wrote it down. But when I look at my life and I decide what I want to do, like, this is my thing. Like, just be inspiring if you can, just whatever it is that you do, like, push yourself to a point. Like, is this going to be something that you want to do? Does it match your perfect day? And is it going to hopefully inspire somebody else?
That's awesome, buddy. And isn't it quite, like, funny how life works out? Like, someone who sort of hates school ends up becoming a teacher. You know what I mean? Like it's quite kind of strange, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and yeah, it just happened to me, like it. And when these things come together like this, it doesn't even feel like work, and there's this like magical click at some point where I'm at a really beautiful stage that I'm so grateful for every single day, where suddenly everything is just the same thing. What I do for a living, how I live my life, how I earn money, and how I make a difference in the world, for me are the same thing at the moment, and that's like I don't know. It's amazing because it just nothing feels like work. I sit down with my laptop in the morning and I'm inspired to do the stuff that I'm doing, and I'm working on things that I know are going to make a difference, and I know just continue to serve the stuff that I'm doing. And every project that I take on now is allows me to travel more and do more stuff and make a difference to people that listen to me. There's not a lot of people that do, but yeah, the few people that do, like I've helped a few people, and it feels amazing, and it's just a massive blessing.
Well, I think it's you know, it's people like you that someone will meet along their journey while they're traveling, and like myself, we met when I was traveling, when you were traveling, and Gareth was traveling with one or two other friends, and look where we are now. We're having a chat here, and your message shone through then. Even maybe you weren't intentionally, sales pitching anything at the time or anything. It was
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
was just you, and you had that was just who you were, and that's the cool thing about having that kind of a purpose, because it shines from you, whether you kind of, like you said, if it's whether it's a conscious thing or not, that's just who you've become now, and people latch onto that so much. So, you're traveling a lot, and so tell us about a little bit from there, like, how did you, what sparked you on your travel journey, and where did you head off from there, from these water skiing? Where did you head off from there?
So the water skiing thing was a while ago. I then ended up starting my own business. I ran the
Yeah.
advertising agency back in South Africa. So the travel thing had a break of about 10 to 12 years while I was
Mm.
back in South Africa.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I ran my advertising agency for about 10 years. And the last 3 years were, I think I mentioned earlier, I wasn't really enjoying it anymore. I had got to a stage where, again, unconsciously, I was feeling uneasy about it, and the business was doing everything it was supposed to be doing, but I just got to a stage where I was like, what more do I need to do? The idea of just continually growing this business eventually started to feel redundant. Like I had all the things in my life that I wanted, a car, I had a house, I had clothes, I had stuff, yet I continued to drive and push myself more and more and more to make more. And I just looked at my life one day and I was like, is this really what it's about? Like, is this it? Like, what do I do if this time next year, I'll have another bigger car because you got to upgrade. Like I was stuck on the path of what I believed I should be doing. So I think that's pretty much where it stemmed from initially. I sold my business to my partner at the time, a girl called Leanne, and this conversation about going to go and sit down with her and tell her that I wanted to get out of it had been something that had been eating me for a long time, because I didn't want to. I was concerned that she was going to, yeah, we were in this thing together, but my concern had always been like, what is she going to think? Like, I don't want to let her down. And so anyway, eventually after 3 years, I sat down with her. I said, let's go for lunch. I sat her down. I said, listen, I'm hating this. I don't know what I want to do anymore, but I don't want to do this. So you can have it. We can sell it. I'm not 100% sure what we're going to do differently, but I want out of this. And she's like, and now I'm expecting like a bombshell to be dropped. Like I've just now broken the news to her that I want out. And instead of that, she just goes like, what's taking you so long to tell me? And I was like, oh my God. Again, like another massive life lesson. We build up these things in our head to
Mm.
like be this massive thing. We have this whole idea that we talk ourselves into, that like, this is going to be terrible. I can never tell my parents. The people that love you and care about you want you to be happy. And if that, sometimes they may resist exactly what that looks like, but most of the time, this is your choice. You need to go and do it. So yeah, I got out of Birthday Suits, which is the agency that Leanne and I had together. And I was going to go traveling. It was like in May of 2014. I had a friend's wedding in the UK that I was going to. And I started there, and I was going to spend 6 months traveling. And when I came back at the end of the year, I was then going to decide what my new business was going to look like. I had no idea what I was going to do. So I just decided I was going to head out and spend 6 months on the road. And in 6 months' time, I would come back. The Like a precursor to that as well was also this idea my dad had instilled in me a little while, well, from a young age, in addition to setting goals every single year, he also had us come up with this idea of developing a thing that he called 100 things in my life. And for all intents and purposes, it's a bucket list. But it's this idea that you write down 100 things that you wanted to do, own, be, see, learn, etc. that you write down. And this had become like a working document in my life that I would look at every single year, and I'd like write it down at the beginning of the year, write down all these cool things you want to do and forget about it. And the next year when you sit down, you're like, oh, I hadn't consciously gone to do that, but now I've learned to scuba dive or done something. You find yourself ticking stuff off this list. But the fact that I continued to add more stuff on there, I looked at it and I was doing some stuff, but I wasn't ticking off as much stuff as was going onto my bucket list. And I looked at this as like this paradox of like, these are the things that I really want to do in my life, yet I don't have enough time or money or capacity to be able to do them. Like, I'm going to die with more stuff on this list than stuff that I've done. And this was like also a massive smack across the face, like this idea, like, if these are the things you really want to do, how come you're not doing those over the things that you feel that you should do, which is work and all those other things? So I was like, no, I need to change this. So I'm going to take 6 months. I'm going to think about my business. I'm going to come back to South Africa in 6 months' time. This was how I left. And while I'm there, I'm going to tick off as many things as I can on my bucket list. So, that was meeting you boys. Yacht Week in Croatia had been on my bucket list since I saw a YouTube video a few years before. That went straight onto my bucket list. I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. And again, this is like, I don't know, weirdly how the universe works. Like, as soon as I decided that I was going to go traveling, I put it out there, and Gareth was like, oh, me and some friends are going to Croatia to do Yacht Week. I was like, no ways, that's on my list. Cool, put that on. Go watch the Tour de France. Go and go to India. Do a trail run in the Himalayas. Go to Everest Base Camp. Anyway, I was going to go and tick off all of these things. Anyway, 6 months. Sorry, the last thing I needed to do in that 6 months before I left here, I had this idea that I was going to try and see if I could apply some of the principles that I'd been reading about in the 4-hour work week. And that was this idea that you can make money somehow on the road with your laptop. And I didn't have a business that made money online via laptop at the time. I had a business where you had people that came to an office and you went to see clients and you sold them advertising. And this was the model. Like, this is not something that I can do while I'm traveling on the road. So while you're out there, find something that you can do, because if you can get that right, you can live the 4-hour work week, this book that I'd read so many times. So that was the other thing that I tried to do. So I left it on the end of May 2014 to go to my friend's wedding, tick off as many things as I could do on my bucket list, and see if I could find a way to make money and then be back for another friend's wedding in December that year. And I did all of that stuff. I continued to add stuff to my bucket list, and I now make decisions to travel to the places that I want to, that allow me to tick off more stuff on my bucket list as I'm going through it.
And you kind of like this is I think a struggle a lot of people have, is the story you tell is awesome and really rosy, and the life you live now is like that. But it surely it's not like that in the start, Surely you flipping fearful and your mind is telling you the complete opposite. How did you kind of deal with that stuff, besides what you told us already, like from the mental side of things, but also what advice do you give people that are in the same boat, that are like, so fearful to go and do it?
Yeah, I mean, there is stuff, like there are challenges, there's certain things that you need to give up in order to live a life that looks like mine. And it's not about getting people to live a life that looks like mine. It's more about this idea that you follow exactly what it is that has a life that looks the way that you want it, But, it's not without its challenges. Life on the road for me, my things are routine. Like, if I travel a lot or I travel hard, I don't always have a routine, and I'm happiest and the most settled when I've got an opportunity to have a routine in my life. So I make space to create routine for myself. I obviously miss some of the comforts of having your own space permanently, because I move quite a bit, but I've started to travel more and more slowly, which means I arrive in a place. I'm in Antigua now, in Guatemala. I've been here for 2 months. I'll probably be here for another 2 more. I'm really settled in a house that I'm sharing with some friends here. But yeah, there's days that you miss friends and family back home. I miss my folks. A Skype call's cool, but it's not the same as being able to sit and have dinner with them. But again, like, it's just every time I find those things difficult, I just I put it into perspective, like what's the price? This is the price that I pay for a lot of other stuff, which is really amazing in my life. And the time that I do get to spend with my parents now, I appreciate it a lot. We've got an upcoming family holiday next year in Canada to spend some time with my brother. So yeah, again, it's just about, firstly about perspective, like putting it into perspective, and also this, if you're battling to find happiness, a lot of times we can find happiness just by being grateful. The act of gratitude in your life is huge. And most people are unhappy because they haven't got something that they want, or they've got something that they didn't want. And it's this idea of like, oh, like I'd be so much happier if I was skinnier, married, full-time job, more cash, whatever it is. And it's those things that lead you to this place of like attachment. You're attached to this idea, and this is what leads to your suffering. I've spent a little bit of time sort of studying Buddhism, and like it's just at the root of everything, this attachment to something that you believe, or the adversity that you have to something bad happening to you. So we live our life in fear or in wanting of something else. And gratitude is a way to flatten that straight away, like this idea of like, I mean, for me, I want to be making more cash. And instead of being grateful for the stuff that I have and the life that I have, I can find myself thinking down a path where I'm really like, oh man, I need to have more money, blah, blah, blah. Gratitude solves that pretty quickly. So I think gratitude's the one thing, but the other thing is just, fear is a tough one, maybe trying to identify where that fear comes from and why you're feeling fearful about it. And again, just trying to understand why you think you need to make that decision in the first place. Like, I'm fearful to go traveling. I'll tell you right now, I plan to go for 6 months. I would love to have lived this life I'm living now up front. I didn't have the balls to say I'm going to go and travel and live full time. So I gave myself 6 months. So I guess I shortcutted or circumvented the idea of that fear by making a decision by saying, I'm going to do this for 6 months. And you give yourself a worst case scenario. I said, like, if everything goes wrong, I can come back. Even if I don't last 6 months, I can come back. I can pick up where I was. I still have a place back in South Africa. I can move back into my old house and I can carry on. I can get even if I can't start another business, I'll get a job. Someone will give me a job and I'll go back. So, you put that fear into its place by giving yourself an alternative or a shortcut around it that gives you the opportunity to do the thing that you want to do, but give yourself the safety net of saying, like, I'll try it, in a way that you personally feel comfortable around it. So mine was go for 6 months and see what happens. So yeah, I think identifying the fear, trying to understand where it comes from, and then give yourself a safe space or a space that you feel comfortable to have a crack at that fear. Because again, it goes back to what we were talking about initially. Like your growth happens when you're uncomfortable, and that a lot of times that comes from facing your fear, and I have it all the time, like I look at things that I do, and yeah, the more you do it, the better you become at doing it. And the more you identify, once you do it and you grow and you identify that growth, that self-awareness that allows you to see, shit, like I did this thing and actually it wasn't as bad as it seems, because that's often the case. And I'm also like in a better place, or I'm not in a better place, but shit, I grew and I understand exactly what I did. Like, that's the thing I think that you can do. But all of this comes down to, I think one of the biggest skills that I talk with when I'm working with clients and stuff is that the skill of self-awareness is huge. Like, how do I behave in the world that I'm in? Like, how do I think about things? How do I process things? Because if you're unconscious of that, you end up down a path where you just go like focusing on a very specific way, like this is what the world says I should do, instead of being self-aware and being like, I'm feeling uncomfortable about this. Like, what's the reason that I'm doing this? That's self-awareness. When you feel fear, when you feel uncomfortable, when you feel super happy, why am I feeling happy now? Like, being aware of what's making me happy allows you to do more of the things that allow you to be happy. But, sometimes people just go through a roller coaster of happy, sad, completely unaware that they're in control of that. And I think self-awareness.
Oh, sorry. I think we had a little bit of a gap there.
So, when you're talking self-awareness, you're traveling around, you've been to so many places, you obviously have to be very aware of yourself. But when you're living with different people, you obviously have to be cognizant of others too, and their emotions, how you're affecting them and how they're affecting you. So tell us about some of the people that you've met along your journeys. Have you, like, the kinds of people and some of the friendships that have been made along your journeys?
Yeah, many. The answer to that is many. From people that I've met with, travelers on the road that have changed my life. Everybody from the retired New York stockbroker that traveled across India with me on a motorbike, to the kid who, has got no cash and is going to go and work in a law firm. Like, a lot of those people you learn from and impact your life without them even realizing it. Like those people have a massive impact on your journey as well. So, yeah, they've been incredible people that I've met in that space. The travel also creates a platform for you to engage with people at various different like cultural levels and different spaces around that. Places like India, Gareth, I know you've been there. If you just sit and are aware of the dynamic that exists in different cultures and try to understand them, even though you may never quite understand them properly because it's not your culture, but just to be aware of what that looks like is massive in terms of like an understanding and an ability to be able to grow. Like, like just sitting with one example. So when I'm traveling India, like initially my model of the world is like you arrive in this place, it's a complete sensory overload. It's crazy. There's a lot of stuff happening. I lived in Kerala down on the beach for a while. This was the place where I worked out my perfect day thing. I'd been living there for a while. And while I was there, you see like small people operating like a small store. One guy has a tuk-tuk, and this whole sort of micro communities operate. And you see money moving between them. The guy from the store gets a lift with the guy on the tuk-tuk, and then he buys vegetables from the next guy. And there's all these little micro economies happening. One guy's a barber, for example. And I looked at that world and I initially judged it. I'm like, shit, these people are shame. I feel so sorry for them. Like they're really battling. They've got no cash. I don't know how they make ends meet, etc. And you live in that community for a while and you immerse yourself in that space and you suddenly start to see it differently. And then the same guys that, sitting outside his barber shop waiting for someone to cut his hair, he's sitting all day drinking chai tea with his mate who's got the shop next door. And you see them day after day sitting on the pavement, just chatting, drinking chai, laughing. Their kids are playing there. His missus is inside. And suddenly you're like, whoa, maybe they've got something that we don't have. Like I know people that have got so much cash who don't even understand their own kids. They don't know who their neighbor is because they live in these massive buildings where they're completely disconnected from one another. And suddenly you're like, everybody works so hard to make all this money so that they can spend time with people that they love. He has people spending time all day with people that they love, and it's just about making things work. And you're like, I'm not sure which is right or wrong, but it's different, right? And you just look at those things differently. And those are like some of the experiences that you get from travel that, you don't always get if you stay stuck in your same world of doing the things that, that I'd been doing for so long, get up, go to work, same people, get up, go to work, same people. So, yeah, I mean, the people that I've traveled with have been amazing and obviously way too many to mention, but also like the cultures that I've engaged with along the way. I mean, that's one example. Those things happen every day if you're aware of them and you look at things differently, It's also this idea of taking your model of the world and setting it aside for a second, because we do this. We judge by a stereotype, by how we think people should look, earn, etc. And like, why should they be making more money? That's what I think they should be doing, but it's not for me to say that. So when you open your mind to that, you can learn from those things, but it requires putting your model of the world aside and just looking at things differently.
I think you've actually upset Craig there by talking about people you've met, and he was like hoping for a shout out, you know what I mean? So he's like, hey, poor guy. He's like, it's coming.
I
saw you left the door open. I decided to close it.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm done with this.
Yeah, that's it. Podcast is over.
let me just put this into perspective, because I was going to do it in the intro, but it didn't quite work out that way. The three of us have had conversations. Craig's lovely girlfriend and myself, Shanti, were in like a mastermind where we used to chat for a while, and with that accountability thing that we were talking about earlier, coaches and stuff. Craig, Shanti, and I were together for a while, just meeting via Skype once a week and chatting about stuff. And between the three of us, we had spoken about potentially doing some sort of podcast idea. And I mean, Gareth, you and I spoke about this, but like my life doesn't really lend itself to being in one space for the amount of time to do a podcast. But it really is an honor to be sitting here talking to you boys, and you've done it. Like, it's really, really cool. So hats off to you boys for doing this. It's truly inspiring to see, like, one of the things that I don't like is like this idea of talking. I've always been someone that everyone goes to like a dinner party, and around 11 o'clock at night, everyone's going to do the next ski trip, and we're going to go skiing, cool, we'll go skiing. And everyone's, had a few glasses of wine. Monday morning, like, you send an email out, oh, look, like, I'm not so sure that we should go skiing, and I, I don't enjoy that. Like, I think I just want to, if we talk about something, let's do it. Let's rather go and do it. So yeah, hats off to you boys. You didn't just talk about it. You've gone ahead and done it. And it's an honor to be sitting here being interviewed by you two ugly buggers.
Feeling is mutual, man.
Yes, man. I think I'm like looking into a mirror here, checking your spaces. But so yeah, the thing is, like, we spoke about fear and experiences and people you meet while you travel, and I mean one of the things, like, things that happen when you travel also really impact you. And I know when you were in Nepal, there was obviously the earthquake there, and afterwards you guys did like some amazing stuff by helping to rebuild the town and raising a lot of money. So, I mean, if you can talk about that, but then also probably before you get onto that, if you don't mind just telling us a bit about climbing, to base camp, was it in Everest?
Cool. Yeah,
Cheers.
it was. Mountains is not something that I've always been that excited about. Like, I'm more of a beach person. And when I was in Sri Lanka, I met a Canadian girl who lived in the Rockies in Canada in a place called Banff, which is like a ski resort. And she's crazy about mountains and climbing and hiking and stuff like that. So Laura had decided that she wanted to go do some trekking in Nepal. So we decided to go and do Everest Base Camp, which was, it ended up, you can do a couple of different routes, but we did a route where we flew to an airport called Lukla, which is apparently one of the most dangerous airports in the world. Go and look for it on YouTube if you want. But it's basically the closest place you can fly to get to Everest. So it's basically this really short runway that's, the mountain comes down like this. They basically cut a section out that looks like a 90-degree angle, and there's a really short space where an airplane needs to land. They have, and obviously the weather up there is pretty inclement, continually wind and snow and stuff like that. So we flew to Lukla, which was an experience, which was amazing. And we started a 21-day trek, which went myself, Laura, and a friend of hers called Shelby. The three of us set off from Lukla. We did about 10 days to get to Everest Base Camp. We then walked through a thing called, we went to Gokyo Lakes. We walked through a pass which required like crampons on your shoes, like so that you could walk on ice and stuff like that, which was amazing. And yeah, so we did that, and Everest Base Camp was amazing. It's really just, those mountains are not like anything I've experienced before. I caught myself at times just looking up with my mouth wide open, staring at these peaks covered in snow, sun shining off them. It's just truly a magical experience. And yeah, that was cool. So we did Everest Base Camp. We took a long, slow walk back via Gokyo Lakes, which was some tough, hard walking in snow some days and stuff like that. We then walked back via Lukla. So it's sort of like a round loop where you get back to Lukla Airport, and some people fly out from there. You can do Everest Base Camp in, I think, about 10 or 11 days, depending on how you want to acclimatize. If you fly to Lukla, do base camp and come back out. Because we flew in, walked a little bit longer doing that extra loop to Gokyo Lakes, and instead of flying out via Lukla, we walked down to a place called Jiri. Our trek ended up being 21 days. And yeah, we then went back to Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, and we hooked up with some other friends there, and we were on our way to a music festival. It was 2 days after my birthday, the 25th of April 2015. And we were on our way to a music festival, which was happening just outside Kathmandu in the forest out there. And we had just had breakfast. It was late breakfast. It was probably like 10 o'clock. And we were walking out of the restaurant, and suddenly like there's this like weird noise, like a drone noise. And I'm like just, and everything's starting to shake a little bit. And in that 1 second, I'm just like, The Kathmandu, for anybody that's not been there, is like it's an old city. It's poor. It's kind of third world. It's dirty. It's grubby. It's not slick like any major capital that you'd expect it to be. And I had thought a lot of the buildings that have got air conditioning have got those really big like air conditioning units that stick out the side of the building, really ugly looking things. And in that 1 second, the vibration, I thought that one of those things had fallen off the side of the building and it landed. But then the vibration continued, and I was like, what the heck's going on? Anyway, Laura, who was with me, the Canadian girl, like grabs my hand and she's like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know, just chill. So we sort of walk outside the restaurant, sort of into the street a little bit, and everything's starting to shake. And at that moment, at about 20 or 30 meters up, some bricks off the right-hand side building basically fall down into the street. And I was like, whoa, like if that had hit us, it would have been tickets. Fortunately, it didn't hit anybody there. But yeah, the whole world starts to shake. So we sort of run back inside, and then I'm like, well, no, we can't be inside. So we are sort of in this limbo of running inside, outside, and then decide, stand next to the building. Laura and I just grab hold of one another. We stand next to the building while everything's starting to shake. The tar road, the blacktop, basically has this wave that moves through it. Like imagine taking a towel that's hanging on a washing line and holding the one end and shaking it. That wave goes through a surface that in my mind is supposed to be solid. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? This is so weird. Anyway, it takes about 45 seconds and then it stops. And I'm like, whoa, what happened there? Fortunately, the road that we were on, there was 2 rows of buildings that were connected to one another. So if you can imagine a really narrow street, probably wide enough for a car and a half. And that street had 2 rows of buildings, probably 4 stories high, all connected to one another. So fortunately, as a function of those buildings being connected to one another, nothing fell down. And at the time, we didn't even realize the extent of what had happened. But so Laura and I eventually like, whoa, that's crazy. I quickly send a WhatsApp message to my folks to say, listen, and I don't even know if it's a big earthquake. I don't know nothing. I've never been in an earthquake. I'm fine. Some bricks fell in the road. That was it. Send a message to my folks to say, listen, there's been an earthquake. We're still going to the festival. If you hear anything, I'm good. So I then walked down the road and we decided to go and get some cash from the ATM. But now people are starting to close their shops and everyone's running around. There's like a bit of panic. And I go to to draw some money from the ATM because I needed money for the festival. And while we're in there, like an aftershock happens and everything starts to shake again. And I was like, whoa. Anyway, myself, Simon, Laura, and the friend that were going to the festival, we decided, listen, let's just get out of town. I don't think we want to be around buildings if this is going to continue like this. So we go and catch a taxi, and the taxi starts driving out of town. And as we start to drive out of town, we realize the extent of what's happened. There's ambulances just driving in every different direction, people with trauma in the street, buildings have completely collapsed. I can't describe the stuff that you see from a taxi window after an earthquake of that size. In a country that's not prepared for earthquakes. Like, understand, you have these sorts of earthquakes in first world countries. The San Andreas Fault in America, like California gets earthquakes, but they're prepared for them. Nepal doesn't have very strong and strict building regulations. I don't think they're prepared for this sort of stuff. So, yeah, there was quite a lot of damage. Anyway, long story short, we end up at the festival, which gets cancelled. But fortunately, we're out of town, so we're on the mountains outside of Kathmandu, basically looking down over the city. And for the next couple of days, we just stay there while these aftershocks continue to rumble through the city. And almost every single time there's an aftershock, you look out over the city and you'll just see like a pile of dust as another building goes down. And you're like, phew. And no one really knows what to do. No one knows if they should go back to town, should they catch flights out of town. It was a really difficult time. So yeah, we stayed up there for a couple of days until eventually the festival organizers had run out of food to give the people that had ended up staying there. So we then decided we needed to go back into Kathmandu, arrive back into town again. Like when you go back in, you just start to see the trauma and the damage that's been created by this earthquake. And that was basically the start of a difficult but really amazing stage in my life. And Laura's and my mate Simon, we were fortunate enough not to have travel plans that we needed to be anywhere specifically. And as a function of social media and putting things out there, quite a lot of friends and family supported us and were basically putting cash into my personal bank account in South Africa that I was using to withdraw. And it was disorganized in terms of how we did it, but we tried to like make some sense of it. And it was really like haphazard relief work. Like none of us know anything about relief work. I mean, if I was to put any of you guys in there, you would basically just use common sense to try and find out how to make it work. But yeah, like everyone's talking about the earthquake, and I would, for example, the one story is we would go every day to the same shop where I'd go get coffee. And I would ask this guy, like, how's everything in your village? And he says, no, my village is fine, but the village next to us, nobody's been to see them. The army can't service every single tiny village that's been affected. So we then took some of the cash that we had and we would load up a truck full of rice and tarpaulins to create temporary shelters for people that had been displaced because the rainy season was coming, monsoon season was coming. So, we loaded up a whole lot of stuff and then took this truck. We drove for like 5 hours in the heat on the back of a truck in Nepal to this village. and went and handed out stuff there. And yeah, the first time we arrived at a place, I think we did about 10 of these different trips over the 2 months that we were there. And yeah, we were just basically flying by the seat of our pants, finding communities that needed help, doing sort of like a very simple needs analysis of what they needed, taking the cash that we had, buying the stuff where we could, because again, like tarpaulins were selling out, food was selling out. So yeah, we're basically buying all of this stuff and then taking it and delivering it to these communities. And yeah, it was really rewarding work, really amazing to see people's strength in times of adversity. You know, like I've got some amazing photos of people that are just like, their houses are completely broken behind them and they're just sitting on the side of the road with a little small fire making food, and the kids are playing. Like, people just get to a stage where they're like, everything's broken, but there's nothing we can do, so we just carry on. Like, and this idea of like, again, like perspective, you know, you just look at your old world and people are crying because they didn't get the promotion that they wanted, or because their girlfriend's just broken up with them, or some random reason that you think your world is so shit. And then you see people that have lost everything, and their ability to be strong in times like that is just, it's just such an amazing opportunity for me to get some perspective on those sorts of things. So yeah, I had amazing support from friends and family. The work that we did was really, really, really rewarding. I had never done anything like that. It's not anything that I had any experience in, but it was one of the things that was a fundamental path in my life that just shifted me, I would say. So on the back of that, we set up a project called Nepal 425, myself and 3 other photographers, where we gathered a whole lot of photographs that people had taken before, during, and then after the earthquake, and we put together a photo book project, which we did a Kickstarter campaign for, and the funds from that went back to Nepal to help rebuild some schools and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a great opportunity, and some days it feels like that thing happened for me, that earthquake happened for me, and the people that I speak to that were there and involved say the same thing. You know, like it feels like it was a massive impact for them, and whatever role they played in it. You know, obviously for the people that were there were affected a lot more than me. I mean, selfishly, it was probably one of the most amazing things that's happened to me. You know, yeah, but it was. I don't know really how else to describe it. It was good and amazing and traumatic and everything all at once.
I think those kind of terrible events, the extremes, it's those times where it's an extreme of human emotion and experience that can really show that real human side of people, and that real, time where you either pull it together or you don't, and it's kind of where you find out where you're at. And it's those, the people around you that end up supporting one another. And I remember I had a friend in the Netherlands that you'd spoken to, if I remember correctly, you'd kind of helped her a bit, and she'd end up actually raising a lot of money, and also through chatting to you, like, having ideas of what to do with it and what have you. And just through that network of people around the world even, it's just amazing how people can band together during tough times. And then I guess for people like you guys that went through something like that, you can relativize other things like massively in your life, like, which a lot of us that maybe haven't been through something like that could really appreciate it, fully,
Yeah. The other thing it does is it takes away, when those things happen, it sort of, it brings things down to its like most basic level, the idea that the person that you're helping, it doesn't matter their race, religion, language, skin color, model of the world, where they are, like, it doesn't matter. It's just another human being that needs help, and hopefully if I was in the same position, somebody would be there for me. And like, there was that realization that it actually didn't matter that your passport was a different color to mine, or that you didn't have the same amount of money as me, or that you didn't even speak the same language as me. Like, we knew what we were there to do, and we knew that somebody needed to be helped. And it was those connections at the most basic level of community and understanding of how human beings really are. Our world gets really complex after that. We've built borders, and we've built controls, and different things in societies and stuff, which somehow tend to separate us some ways, and we're all guilty of this. You walk into a place and someone's a different color to you, or speaks a different language to you, or doesn't dress the same way you do. You put them into a box, and I think that experience basically breaks those boxes down a bit.
Yeah, and I mean, all the stuff you're saying echoes what we're trying to talk about on the podcast, and that's about being ridiculously human. Deep down
Yeah.
inside, even though we're massively complicated, we're also really simple, and we strive to want the same things and achieve the same things, and it purely comes down to want to be part of a community, want to feel loved, and also want to help people. And I think you've been really sort of humble about the way you spoke about the massive help that you provided, because I remember watching it not watching it, but like following you on Facebook, and like every single day I was kind of waiting for like an update, because you were posting like photos of everything that you experienced and saw, and it was really powerful, man. And I think you guys just, wow, you've changed people's lives because of that. And I'm proud to have you as a buddy. It was really special watching you do that. So I just wanted to like
Yeah.
shout out and say that's
Thanks, man.
that's really special.
Yeah, and again, like I just thank you for saying that. Like I just again, I would, and I don't want this to sound like me being more humble than I need to be, but like again, when I put this event into perspective, it's like it's really one of the best things that's happened to me, and like again, that just reiterated this idea that we have this idea that we will be happier when we get stuff, and most of the time we're happier when we give stuff, and we live in a world about get, and less about give, and I just try and apply that stuff to my life, give back where you can, and also to business, because the businesses that I'm involved in now, like your conversation that you had around community and connectedness and trust, I believe that the business world has changed to a place where, people have been tired of being shouted at and deceived and shit like that, and this idea that everybody can be a customer, for example. You just force your idea down someone's throat. Like, people don't roll like that anymore, and we're working quite hard on a new business, and our business is about helping other people start businesses. And this idea that you build trust and you get to connect with somebody, and you serve that person before you try and sell them something. You connect with them on the levels that we've connected as human beings for the longest time. Like when we sat around fires, like we were friends first, like we helped each other first. It wasn't like I came in and started taking shit. Like, we trusted each other because we helped each other. And the more I think about and see that stuff, the earthquake happens to be one example. Like, if you apply that to business, you build in a space where your customer understands you, you understand them, that you work together and you get each other before you start trying to sell them something. So yeah, it's something that we're trying to instill in the businesses that we create now, and not just this idea of like a sales funnel that you get 2,000 people in the top and you get 4 customers out the bottom as a function of default. Like, you've shouted loud enough to get customers. Like, those customers don't stay, in my opinion. It's about connecting with them at the level that they want to be connected at, that you like understand them. I get you. I know what you need, because these are the things that have driven human relationships for the longest time. And again, society's built these different things where, you do fancy sales pitches and fucking PowerPoints and shit. Like, understand me before you sell to me,
Exactly right.
And just changing gears a little bit, talking about service to others and adventure. I think these are kind of things that are themes that we're seeing with you here, Gareth. And you did an interesting thing. You rode a really, really long way on a bicycle with one gear, and in sort of an adventure sense, and also to sort of help others. And so what did you do that for?
That was an event called Joburg to Kili. Joburg being the short name for Johannesburg, to Kilimanjaro, which is the highest peak in Africa. It's in Tanzania, which is almost 5,000 kilometers away from Johannesburg. And when I was back in South Africa in the last 3.5 years, I went back to South Africa to get rid of some stuff. I had a whole lot of stuff in storage. And while I was back in South Africa, I connected with a family friend who, him and his wife, had decided that they were going to do this trip to Kilimanjaro, and they were going to raise funds for a bicycle charity in South Africa called Quebecer. And Quebecer has, just to give you some context, is this idea that people have done studies in impoverished communities and come up with this option that, or this idea that, this model that works, that if people are mobile in really impoverished communities, people walk, kids need to walk to get to school, a business owner or breadwinner needs to walk to get to the market. If he's selling fruit and vegetables or whatever he farms or something like that, he needs to walk with his produce, however he gets it to a market. And this idea that increasing mobility allows kids to get to school quicker, or it allows the farmer to get to the market 2 or 3 times in a day rather than once. And as a function of doing that, the whole community is uplifted through this mobility. So the kids attend school more, he takes more food to the market, makes more money, spends more money in his community. The whole community is uplifted as a function of mobility. So Quebec has this is the South African arm of the World Bicycle Relief Fund, and they provide these really robust bicycles into impoverished communities with a view that this mobility will uplift the communities. And specifically, they give it to kids that need to walk more than an hour to get to school. So if a kid walks more than an hour to get to school, there's a very good chance he doesn't make it. He gets there hungry, takes a long time to get home, etc., etc. So giving this kid a bicycle means he can get to school in 15 minutes. He can come home, more time for homework, more time to help around the house. So this is the charity that the Warwick and Camilla were raising money for, and they invited me to go along. It just said, listen, we're going. We've got pretty much the route planned, and there's space for you if you want to join us. And you're welcome to come. And initially I was like, whoa, no, too far, scared of Africa, like I don't want to travel there. And again, like I needed to be a little bit more self-aware. And I said, listen, I'd gone for coffee with him to talk about something completely unrelated. And Warwick invited me to go on this trip. And initially I was like, no, I can't do it. And every reason that came into my head was like, don't do it, you know. And I was fearful. I didn't really want to do it. I didn't want to spend 10 weeks on a bicycle. I love cycling, but the idea of this was a massive challenge, and I wasn't ready to do it. And then that evening I went out for dinner with some friends, and everyone was like, so what's your next adventure? And I couldn't stop myself. This just came out of my mouth. I'm like, oh, I'm riding a bicycle to kill you. And, and I realized as soon as I put it out there that, I couldn't go back on it then. So, then I phoned Warwick the next day and said, listen, but I'm in. So, we left in May of 2016, and we cycled from Johannesburg. We took 10 weeks to cycle the 5,000 Ks to get up to Kilimanjaro, which was from South Africa. We went through Botswana. We went into Zambia to Malawi. We rode all the way up the Lake Malawi. And then into Tanzania, and then Tanzania we rode to a place called Moshi, which is the base of Kilimanjaro, where we put the bikes down, put hiking boots on, and then a week up to the top of Kilimanjaro, and raised funds for this bicycle charity. So we got some sponsorship along the way, and we did some PR type stuff, and just created awareness that allowed us to basically procure 60 bicycles for kids in South Africa that walk more than an hour to get to school. So that was Joburg to Kilia. It was a magic experience. Seeing a country, seeing Africa from the back of a bicycle as opposed to from a car engages another 2 senses that you don't have if you're sitting in a car. If you drive past a small town, you don't get the sense of smell, and you don't get the sense of audio that you do on a bicycle. When you cycle through a town, you get to engage with people. There's no barrier that you have in a car, and the people along the way were incredible. The communities that we rode through were, to see 4 white people riding bicycles, like, they hardly see white people. These white people all dressed in matching cycling kits cycling through there. So that was a really cool opportunity, and a nice thing to do, a nice way to see Africa. Climbing Kili was incredible, and it was a really good initiative that we were involved in, and also great support from people. We did some cool fundraising stuff, and 60 bicycles is 60 kids that hopefully get to school a bit quicker.
Yeah, that's amazing. But they must have thought, Flip, you guys were aliens or something like that. That all these guys were all dressed in these purple, pink outfits. And
the weirdest part is that we had a support vehicle. So we got a sponsor, and Jeep South Africa sponsored us to go up, and they supplied a support vehicle. And the car is riding behind the bicycles. These guys must have been scratching their heads. You Muppets have got a car, but you ride bicycles. I'm sure there were a few.
And Gareth,
how did your ass handle such a long ride? Did you have to train a bit? And
I've been a cyclist for quite a few years. Cycling is something that I've always enjoyed, mountain biking, and I've done some triathlon stuff. So it was okay. I hadn't done a huge amount of cycling in the 2 years prior to that because I'd been traveling and I didn't have my bicycles with me. So yeah, it took a little while to get comfortable on that bike. But yeah, in somewhere in the second week you got used to it. But yeah, I mean there were days that it was tricky. We rode those same bicycles that they donate to kids. It's basically a 20 kilogram bicycle. If you can imagine the bicycle that a postman uses, like single gear, really heavy, like a robust thing, pedal back brakes. Those are the bikes that they give to these impoverished communities as a function of the fact that they want these things to be solid and not break. So
Yeah.
yeah, to create more awareness, we rode those same bicycles up there. So yeah, there were days, and the highlands of Zambia is just mountainous, and you're riding this one-speed bicycle through those hills. So yeah, there were some tough days. There was some interesting dynamics between living with six strangers for the 10 days. Like nobody knew anybody really except for the couple, Warwick and Camilla, that were married. And yeah, it's interesting. You're living in each other's space the entire time. You're on bicycle all day. You camp at night in a place that you don't know. You don't even know if there's a campsite. Some nights we just bush camped in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, really like testing in terms
Yes.
of your ability to be able to connect with other people and experience the stuff that we did.
And there there was one or two. Well, there was one night I think in particular. Was it when your accommodation burnt down? Was it on that trip?
It was on that trip. It was after we'd done the summit of Kili. We were on our way back, and the group had split up by then, and myself and a mate Derek were coming back through Mozambique, and we were staying at a lodge, camping on the beach in Mozambique, and there was a massive storm coming in. And there was wind blowing and thunder, and we're like, "Oh, that's amazing! Look at that storm!" So instead of having a barbecue that night because we had been camping, we decided that we are going to eat at the restaurant of this little beach lodge type place. It was really rustic. Like all the places in Mozambique are basically built out of sticks and grass roofs that they basically just take as they use palm fronds, dried palm fronds to make roofs and stuff. Like it's really beautiful, but it's quite rustic. And the entire complex, which exists as like a kitchen and a bar and a dining room, like chill out area, and then 5 or 6 villas are basically like beach bungalows, are all built with this sticks and palm fronds for roofs. And yeah, from nowhere, someone just shouted fire, fire, and this massive onshore wind had started. The fire had started on one of the hot water boilers that was boiling the water for one of these villas, and yeah, fire just spread through these things. And I mean, I've never been in fire, but I mean, you sit down to drink a beer and have dinner, you don't check to see if there's a fire extinguisher near you, and suddenly you realize you need to make a plan around this. So we managed to find the fire extinguisher and take the fire extinguisher to where the fire's going, and just have absolutely no chance of being able to put this fire out with basically a hose pipe. So the fire is moving from one bungalow to the next as a function of the wind basically blowing the same direction as the last bungalow is. It's blowing the fire to the next bungalow to the next, and there's 4 bungalows. It must have been 20 minutes, and these things were almost all gone. So basically what we did, instead of trying to put those out, which we had no chance of being able to contain with the strong wind, we used the little water that we had and sprayed the roof of the main complex, because that entire roof was all connected, and it was basically the entire lodge aside from these 4 bungalows. So we basically just spent the time wetting that roof so that when the fire moved to the last bungalow, it didn't jump across. And fortunately, the rest of the lodge didn't burn down, but the 4 bungalows went up in a record time. So yeah, we I don't think we did very much. We managed to save the main lodge, but it was a crazy experience. So.
Jeez.
Yes, yeah, that must have been flipping crazy, man. The heat must have been intense, eh?
It is. It's really crazy. Like, and again, like you hear about these things, but until you experience them, you don't get a sense of exactly just how powerful nature can be. Sometimes, we think we're so blooming clever until you have fire and you realize like you've got pretty much no chance here.
I'm pretty sure there's a beer advert waiting to happen where, putting out a fire, the end of putting out the fire.
With a puppy.
And Bud, I guess like talking about nature being so powerful, there's a couple of things we always like to get a bit deeper into with our guests, so that our listeners can learn a few things. And we know that at the moment, one of the things that I think you and your good friend Simon are are testing is the power of food, and that food being mushrooms. And there's lots of talk about it right now in terms of the how powerful they are and how the health benefits of it. I actually just read an article this morning on BBC website talking about a particular substance in some type of mushroom helping people with long-term depression. So do you just want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I'm by no means qualified on this topic. It's not something that I have any formal qualification on. It's something that I've been really interested in for the last couple of years. Just this idea of, and again, my education around this topic extends really just to reading some articles about it and listening to some blog posts and some podcasts now focused quite smart people that know a lot more about this than I do run podcasts talking about this stuff. But this idea that psychedelics can be used for healing various types of ailments is something that's been interesting to me for a while. And I have, I don't want to say bleak views of the world, but I think there's quite a lot of things that are happening in our world at the moment that I think could change. There's quite a few people that have got quite a lot of money invested in things like healthcare and financial services and our food supply and all those sorts of things. And quite a lot of people in that space are working quite hard to protect the status quo and their profits of their businesses, often at the expense of their customers. And their customers are, war vets coming back from Vietnam. It's a massive, massive business to have post-traumatic stress war vets coming back to America and going on to, first of all, into the healthcare system. Hospitals are businesses. Having them take drugs, post-traumatic stress, all the antidepressant type stuff, having these war vets going to counseling. There's a massive problem with post-traumatic stress war vets coming back from wars like Iraq back to the States and being a massive drain on the taxpayer and society. When you start to see that that's basically just consent to spend taxpayers' money on something, you start to wonder, this needs to be done as efficiently as possible. It has been proven by people much smarter than me that psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms, is by far one of the best cures for post-traumatic stress and depression that we know about. Yet it's illegal in a lot of places, and we're not allowed to use this drug to help cure post-traumatic stress, where the world in general, and specifically America, because this is the one example in an interview that I'm talking about. These people, what we should really be doing is creating safe, facilitated environments to take anybody with depression, specifically these war vets, and creating sort of a space where they can take in a controlled environment psilocybin to help them overcome their depression, because it's been proven that this is a natural, cheap, really, really cheap. These things grow naturally in a field. You can harvest this stuff for free. And the long-term effects of a single magic mushroom trip on depression extends somewhere up to 6 months, and it's been proven time and time again. So, the idea of psychedelics as a way to be able to heal us is something that I'm interested in. And there's also a very interesting topic about the role that psychedelics play in a spiritual journey, because these things have been around us for ages. Like if you do any research into things like ayahuasca, which is another, it's an hallucinogenic that's taken by the Central and South American tribes, the Incas, and Gareth, I know you know a little bit about this stuff. It's something that's been around for a while. The answers often exist in nature. They're around us all the time. We just need to be a little bit more open to them and to take these things. But the idea that you don't take these drugs to party or to trip specifically, but that you take it with a very specific purpose and cause, and things like a facilitated psilocybin trip, where you actually do things like, for example, set your intentions of what you want to be able to achieve during this time that you're in an altered state as a function of the magic mushrooms that you've taken, as a way to be able to solve problems for yourself if you take it in a controlled way. And one of the most important things, and this is something I'll just touch on, more and more people, if you study Buddhism or anything to do with that, people, specifically a Western world, have an inability to be able to be present, to be able to be right here, right now. And a lot of that stems from us worrying about things that have happened in the past. We're concerned about the things that have already happened to us, and we're really concerned about the things which may happen in the future, both of which we have no control over. The only thing we can do is be very present right here, right now. And if Buddhism is this idea that you just need to focus on now. Just don't worry about later. Don't worry about what's happened. Just be present now. Change the things that you can do now. And it's at the basis of, at the root of happiness and being content. People taking magic mushrooms, in the trip of magic mushrooms, you don't think about what's happening in the future. You don't worry about what's happened in the past. You have an amazing ability. The drug has an amazing ability to make you very present and to be able to see beauty in the small things that are around you. And the benefits of those, that trip basically extends even after you feel the physical effects on it. It opens up pathways, neurological pathways in your brain that allow you to look at things differently. So yeah, that's the extent of what I know about it. It's a really interesting space for me, and yeah, I'm trying to, not very well, I just share articles where I can, but yeah, just create awareness for people, because people, and this is again, the model of the world is like, drugs bad, don't do it. But where did we get that? Like, who said that? The people that control the news said that. The same people that have a vested interest in making money out of hospitals and drugs and stuff like that. So that's really the extent of what my involvement is and my understanding of it.
And do you like take any yourself or anything like that? Do you try it out any?
So I do. I mean, my drug taking is pretty colorful. I'm not scared of taking drugs, but it's something that I've looked at over the last, basically the last 4 years. I've taken psychedelics probably about 5 or 6 times in the last 4 years. It's not something that I do just to party. It's something that I do with an intention of coming out of it, or just enjoying it for what it is. And I feel the long-term benefits of it. In simple things. So for example, taking magic mushrooms, you're really able to see like a huge amount of beauty in the things that exist around you the entire time. And the way that I can best describe this, if we want to go into a little bit of detail, I think that the world around us is so busy and there's so much sensory overload that your mind has a way of having to make sense of things. It puts like a little filter over your head so that it's not too much and too intense. So these filters basically like subdue all of the things that are around you. Colors are less bright. The feeling of wind is less intense. But when you take psilocybin or magic mushrooms, it's almost as though these filters in your brain lift a little bit, and you're able to just see things for what they are. The beauty of nature that you experience. That you see those things in the time that you're there, and even after having come down from that trip, for months afterwards, I still see, the trees look more green, the waves look more beautiful. Like, that stuff exists, and the long-term benefits of, I can feel them, that they're there. And my friend Simon is actually doing, quite a lot of guys in Silicon Valley at the moment are doing what's called microdosing, where you take very small amounts of psilocybin or even LSD sometimes, and you don't even feel the trip, but it still continues to allow you to be more present, allow you to be more focused, and allow you to be more creative in your work, because the same way that it allows you to be more creative and more focused when you're tripping, those effects continue even at a micro level. So yeah, people take small amounts of magic mushrooms over a sort of an extended period to get the benefits of it without physically feeling like they're having a trip. And that's really where how applying it to my life as a way to enhance my life. And yeah, it also enhances a spiritual journey to some extent, because it gives you a real sense of connectedness to the people that are around you and to your environment and to nature.
If I'm hearing you, things like feelings of connectedness and friendship and love and beauty, those aren't necessarily, like you said, the things that a lot of people would associate with a drug, and that's really, it's good to hear. And I think that's part of that whole thing that you were speaking about earlier, Gareth, is that a lot of what we think we know, we don't know. And it's just, like you said, it's just that from a young age, that idea that we've been given. And I think it's really important to expose and read and learn, and at least try and appreciate other people's views on these kinds of things. So I think it's really cool that you're having those discussions and open about it in a responsible way,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's very interesting, like listening to, to people like exploring those certain things. But I think the risk is that a lot of people that maybe, like see the fun in it, they don't know how to how to microdose. They don't know how to take small amounts. They get carried away. They might just fall in like a downward spiral. So it's sometimes a catch-22. Do you think?
Look, I think it's like I'm not in a position to be able to suggest what that should look like. I mean, this is not something that people should be doing. Like the precursor to all of this is like speak to your doctor or somebody that knows this shit. Like I'm not that person. Like, I'm not too concerned about that stuff because to be honest, I took LSD when I was in high school. Like it's something that I've not been too concerned with. And that's what's been interesting for me is that this idea that taking LSD when I was in school was just like, oh, so trippy and stuff like that. And I went to a party on it and it was cool. Taking LSD now in my life, when my headspace is different and you take it with intention and you take it with a purpose, it's not even the same thing. I don't take LSD to party. Like for me, it's this idea of just being more connected, to recenter myself, to align myself and be closer to nature and to appreciate those things. Like those are the reasons that you should take them. And again, you need to take them in the right space with the right person. That a lot of these cyber silent magic mushroom things, you can actually do a facilitated journey where one person doesn't take, and you take somebody. The person that doesn't take is qualified almost like a Sherpa or some sort of a guide, and you help the other person through the process so that they continually feel safe, and you work them through this whole thing. So that's a space that I'm not too involved in, but that is the way that I would suggest if somebody was to do this, was to do it with someone that's a qualified facilitator to take them through some sort of a journey like that. So yeah, there is an opportunity to do it, but I don't think it's just buy some from the guy on the street and take them, man.
Yeah, exactly.
So just discussing, the idea of learning and new ideas and teaching and that kind of thing. Gareth, talk a little bit about what your ventures are at the moment and what you're working on, and the space of and giving back and helping others through teaching and your other sort of ventures that you're busy with at the moment.
So the business that I own at the moment is called The Freedom Fighter, and it's basically an online community of initially it was just basically products that I developed, but I'm making it more of a community at the moment. And again, it comes from the universe showing me what I thought I should be doing, because every time someone looks at me and says like, oh, how do you do this? How do you pay for it? Like that's always the first question I get from somebody. Like, that looks amazing, but how do you pay for it? Everyone's always worried about money. Like their model of the world means I must have money because in money is security. So the Freedom Fighter is basically a project that I've set up to, like I said, generate and create content that inspires people to take action. And then in taking action, we've developed two products, which are basically a masterclass type format, which allows people to start their own online business. And as opposed to just, you can learn various things about online business, like how to build a website, how to do marketing, how to get your head right for starting your business. But myself and my partner Alex have worked on a sort of an end-to-end model, which is basically from the very beginning. It's a 6-month program where people basically come to us either with an idea or even if they don't have an idea, and we work with them in a group environment, like a masterclass environment, 10 people working together, come up with an idea of something that you want to use to teach, the idea that everybody has something that they can teach the world, and understand what that is, find a niche that you're going to market your product to, then get the person into the right frame of mind. So using some coaching techniques and life coaching type stuff, get the person into the right frame of mind to believe that they can be an entrepreneur and start a journey as an entrepreneur, and then help them physically build a website, which is very technical but very practical in terms of including screencasting type stuff. This is how you build a WordPress website. This is how you develop content. This is how you protect this content. This is how you market the product. This is how we think you should price it, etc. And taking them through the entire journey from beginning to end. And then at the end of that, hand holding them to getting their first few customers, and then letting them go on their own as a business owner at the end of a 6-month program. So that's the one element. And then the other is it basically follows on from that. We've got a community of online entrepreneurs in an online community where people just connect with one another to talk about the things that they have, challenges that they have, questions that they have, and the sense of community specifically around online business. So that product is called Odyssey, and it's a premium Slack channel where online entrepreneurs are connecting together to talk about anything that they have in their business. And this comes back almost full cycle to where we were talking about my relationship with my coach John when I was working on my own. The journey of an entrepreneur at the moment, specifically a remote working entrepreneur, or someone that's working outside of a traditional office environment, don't often have the opportunity to just stand around the water cooler and chat to their colleagues anymore. They're stuck behind their laptop and they don't have a chance to ask questions and be accountable to one another. So Odyssey is this community where people come together and talk about things that they're battling with. There's discussions happening around things like marketing, technical aspects of building a website, personal motivation, Facebook ads, Google AdWords, that type of stuff. And also a very strong role in accountability. So the main focus of Odyssey is to take every single customer in our community who is an online business owner and say to them, what is the one thing in your business that you're working on at the moment to try and change in the medium to long term, and making yourself accountable to the community to do that. And then every single week, each person in the community creates one task that they're going to get done for that week. And during that week, they are accountable to the community, and a real person sends them a message at some point saying, hey, you haven't done your task. That keeps them on the process of doing this stuff. So again, accountability to do the important stuff in their business, not the urgent stuff, that keeps them going from one week to the next. So those are really the two programs that I'm working on at the moment. And yeah, loving doing it. Just an amazing opportunity to connect with some really cool people. I'm getting a lot of help from people that know a lot more than me, and at the same time helping them to connect to other people. So that's pretty much the stuff that I'm working on at the moment.
That's awesome, buddy.
Man. Thank you.
And yeah, it's really been like inspiring watching your journey, I must say. Like, you know, I even remember, I think, chatting to you, we were just on message or whatever, like, or email, I think it was, before this whole thing started, and you know, just like asking, a couple of questions about what you got planned, whatever, and that's where the Croatia thing kicked off. And it's just been really inspiring watching you over the years, you know what I mean? And now you literally are living your perfect day, and it's just so great to see people doing that and achieving that. And you know, you had to put yourself out there to do it. So congratulations on doing that, my man. And in terms of like future courses that you have, when do your next one start, and how can people sign up to them?
So our Masterclass 2, which is called Ignite, that's the so Masterclass 1 was a masterclass that I ran for 7 people. That finished in about 2 months ago, and it was really successful. It didn't have a very specific focus like the program I was talking about now with regards to starting an online business. That was just a group coaching type thing that I put together, and some people made some really amazing changes in their lives. Quit their jobs, left to go on full-time travel. Like, people did some really cool stuff. And at the end of that, I got feedback from Masterclass 1 and Ignite, which is Masterclass 2, which is setting up an online business around teaching, specifically an online content business, is going to kick off at the end of this year or early next year, depending on how soon we can get our product together and our sales strategy together. But all of the details will be available on my website, which is thefreedomfighter.net. So the website is thefreedomfighter.net, and all the details will be on there. Application process will be on there. And again, just the application process for that as well, just to give you some context, is this idea of being like, I don't for a second think that we're going to be able to help everybody. And I also don't think that everybody's going to want to work with me. So the application process for that is quite an intensive, like 1 week application process, where any serious person that wants to start an online business is responsible for like completing a couple of tasks in that week-long period, and they need to submit that as part of their application. If they decide that they want to go ahead with the program, and we think that we can help them, they'll become a customer of Ignite. But even if they don't, that 1 week of intensive work is quite a lot of value for them, because it includes things like writing a business plan, understanding your market. So we give a huge amount of value to help that person. First of all, we want to build trust so that they can see that they want to work with us. But like I said a little while ago, like, connect with somebody to see whether you want to work together. You know, I don't want to work with people that are not committed. You know, if someone wants to start an online business and can't get through 5 days of an online application process, they're not going to last 6 months. So, you know, and at the end of a week, if the person doesn't like our vibe or what we've given to them, they've hopefully got some value from it, and it's something that they can use to kick off a business in another particular direction. But if they do like us, maybe we work together. And if they don't, that's also cool. So that's basically just the application process for Ignite, which will be kicking off, like I said, in about a month or two's time.
Oh, that sounds really exciting. I think that's going to bring a lot of value to a lot of people, and I think it's your passion is just speaks for itself. So I think people definitely need to check that out.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And bud, so we just want to thank you so much for your time. You must have like a pretty dry mouth at the moment from speaking so much. It's really been fascinating chatting to you, bud, and I really, really appreciate it. There's so many sort of chunks of great information that you've just sort of given your advice on, and hopefully that's music to our listeners' ears. And yeah, man, we know that you're actually running off to a CrossFit competition there in Guatemala in Antigua, and it's that's so cool. You really are living like a great life, and we just want to wish you all the best, and just thank you once again.
Yeah, I'd also just like to echo what Gareth says as well. You're an articulate guy. You've taught me a lot from a personal level. Just watching your journey, you've inspired a lot of people. You're a really, you're a good bloke at the end of the day, which is, like you say, you keep it real. You're going to get an honest answer from you, and I've always appreciated that. So, and I think our listeners will really get so much value out of just hearing what's possible, and just maybe just a slight 1 or 2 degrees difference to the journey they've been on. Maybe they can just think about things slightly differently and see what's possible. So I think I'd just like to thank you for that as well, and we wish you really all the best. We're really excited to see you with your launches of your new products. I think they're going to be really awesome. So good luck with all of that.
Thanks, boys. And it's really nice to see this dream come true from this side of the Skype call. It's you boys have got an amazing thing happening here. I did a little bit of research on the guys that you've already interviewed on the podcast leading up to now. I know this is in its infancy, but man, this we really live in an amazing time where we can connect with people, and it's not about having like 1 million downloads. I guess this is the same for you. It's about making a connection with 1 or 2 people. You don't have to change the entire world. You can just change a few people. And the technology that we've got and the platform that we've got to do this is incredible. And hats off to doing it. It's really an honor to be sitting this side and being interviewed by you two boys. So thanks, man.
Cheers, good.
Cheers, my man. Cool, buddy. Woo!
Nice
that
one,
was
boys.
awesome, my man.